In 1959, Pope John the 23rd wrote his first encyclical. And there he quoted a Latin saying, "In necessariis unitas, in dubiis libertas, in omnibus caritas." If we translate it into English, it says, in essential things, unity. In doubtful matters, liberty. But in everything, love. Well, even Pope John the 23rd did not seem to know exactly kung sino ba talagang nagsabi nito. It is often attributed to Saint Augustine, but experts in the works of Augustine say, hindi sa kanya galing ito. Pope John the 23rd calls it a common saying expressed in many ways and attributed to various authors. Siguro nagtataka kayo why I translated the third line from "in omnibus caritas" to "in everything love" instead of "in everything charity." Dahil alam ninyong caritas is usually translated in English as charity. But check out the Latin version of St. Paul's famous letter to the Corinthians, chapter 13. Madalas itong ginagamit sa mga wedding liturgies. And you will find out that the word caritas is the Latin word that is being used for the highest form of love, which in Greek is called agape. May ibang words, no? And Pope Benedict, dun sa Deus Caritas Est, diniscuss niya yung the different words for love, like eros, philia, and agape. Yung agape, yun ang tinatranslate into caritas. You see, maybe we should restore charity to its original meaning, love, instead of equating it with the token dole-outs that you give to beggars, charity. Not only is it supposed to be the highest form of love in biblical vocabulary, it is the very principle that kept the Christian community together amidst the many threats and challenges of conflict and division. We've been mentioning this in the first reading from the Acts of the Apostles for the past few days now. Ang unang hidwaan sa mga sinaunang Kristiyano. Our first reading tells us that what eventually led to a resolution of the earliest conflict within the Christian community wasn't really about the policies that they had agreed to adopt, but rather their very willingness to enter into a dialogue with each other, to listen to one another's views with an open mind, to treat one another with respect, even when they disagreed with one another, to set aside biases and prejudices. In short, ay ituring ang isa't isa bilang kaibigan o bilang kapatid. Pwede naman na hindi magkasundo sa opinyon and still be friends and still be brothers and sisters. There have been many points of disagreements within the church at other times in history, like disagreements over issues of doctrine, morality, and pastoral priorities. Hanggang ngayon, ganun pa rin. Sigurado ako in all parishes and dioceses, sometimes you experience disagreements among each other, fellow church workers and volunteers. And these have always brought about tensions within the church. Some of them have not been resolved amicably, but have led to a parting of ways. But remember what I said earlier, that not all divisions are necessarily negative. That the body of Christ is very much like the human body, made up of different cells. Merong healthy cells at merong unhealthy cells. Yung unhealthy cells, like the cancerous cells, when they divide, they metastasize at nagiging toxic, deadly. Pero yung healthy cells, when they divide, the body grows and heals itself. Now, Pope Francis, like Pope John the 23rd, has emphasized what he calls the spirit of synodality in the church. Yung salitang synodo, galing sa Greek word synhodos. Ibig sabihin, together on the way. Kasama sa paglalakbay. Synhodos, synodality. The term reminds us of those two disciples who left Jerusalem and were escaping, and they were on the way to Emmaus. Remember that passage in Luke 24, when Jesus appeared to them and walked with them. And he ended up, after discussing with them, breaking bread with them, rerouting their journey so that they would return to the community and would walk with one another. The idea is, lahat naman tayo naglalakbay. We are all travelers. We are mere pilgrims on a journey in this world. We have a common destination that is beyond this world. And we are all just passing through. Dumadaan lang tayo. Kaya nga pag namatay yung mga kaanak natin, sinasabi natin, they have passed on. Dumaan lang sila. Christianity is the conscious decision to follow the way of Jesus, or even better, to follow Jesus who is the way. And what is that way that is represented by Jesus? Well, in today's gospel, Jesus calls it the way of love. Loving as Jesus has loved us. Ewan ko ba, pag pinauulit ko yung gospel sa iba, what did you hear? Ano daw yung sinabi ni Jesus na kanyang new commandment? And usually they say, sabi ho niya, love one another. And I get frustrated because that's not what he said. He said, love one another as I have loved you. Yung kalahati lang yung natatandaan natin. The more important part is yung gaya ng pag-ibig ko sa inyo. Parang ang expectation ni Jesus, we learn to love as He has loved us. Parang in-anticipate ni Jesus na dahil mga tao din ang kanyang mga alagad, they were bound to get divided in their interpretation of the law or the commandments, which was the case in Judaism. Kaya nga, sinamarize niya yung 10 Commandments, ginawa na lang niyang 2. Love God above all and love your neighbor as yourself. At kung mahirap pang tandaan yon, Sa mga nag-uulyanin, the good news is, Jesus further summarized the two into just one commandment. Ang sabi niya, my commandment to you is this, that you love one another as I have loved you. Ito daw yung pundasyon ng pananampalatayang Kristiyano. It is the very core of our faith and the very thing that can keep us together. Like I said, it is not just about loving each other, but learning to love with the love of Christ. Let me go back to the saying, in essential things, unity. That means we should always make our best effort at getting into the most essential things that can unite us. But then, of course, we know that in regard to the things that divide us, the things we regard as doubtful or debatable, we should respond with respect for each other's freedom. In dubiis libertas, meaning that we learn to transcend our own views and allow others the freedom to follow their consciences. Now, can we have disagreements or even part ways and still walk with Jesus? That is answered by the third line in OMNIBUS, CARITAS. Doon sa kanta ng Peze, ginawa nilang in omnibus amare. Basically the same thing. In everything, love. Meaning, the will to prioritize not what I can get, but what I can give. Even my whole life. Ang sabi niya, there is no greater love than to be able to lay down even one's life for one's friends. Well, the choice to remain as friends, to remain together in spirit, even when we might take different paths physically. There is an old liturgical song that says this beautifully. It's from the theme from the Cardinal. It's an old song entitled, Stay With Me. Stay with me. It's a very beautiful song and a piece of poetry. The song says, should my heart not be humble? Should my eyes fail to see? Should my feet sometimes stumble on the way? Stay with me. Like a lamb that in springtime wanders far from the fold, come the darkness and the frost, I get lost. I grow cold. I grow cold, I grow weary, and I know I have sinned, and I go seeking shelter, and I cry in the wind. Though I grope, and I blunder, and I kneel, and I'm wrong, though the road buckles under where I walk alone, till I find, to my wonder, every path leads to Thee, and all that I can do is pray. Stay with me. Stay with me.